Welcome back to the channel, folks. Today I'm going to be showcasing some fights from the second war of season number 48. Spoiler alert, not everything went as I was hoping and planned for it. So with that, let's just go ahead and get right into it. The first fights that you're going to be seeing are going to be from over at S. I'm going to be in Path 7 for both of the sections. This first fight is going to be Professor X versus a Kingpin. So on this fight, basically I'm just going to be keeping the indestructible charges in control, doing a lot of parrying and then hits into block to help mitigate those indestructible charges. The global tactic is going to help with a lot of making sure his debuffs don't actually fall off and they're going to stick. Other than that though, it's a fairly straightforward fight. I'm just going to go for the SB3 with my mutant power boosts and finish off the fight like that. Next up is going to be Professor X against a Elsa Bloodstone. Again, same approach. I am just going to make sure that I keep my passive prowess charges up and mitigate her indestructible charges. So I'm going to parry as much of her special 1 projectiles as I can to keep that under control and build up my Professor X mind control charges up to 100 so that he can enter mind control and finish up with a special 3. Next up, I did get to use Cassie. She is ascended, so it's just a good time anytime I get to use her. I ranked her up a while ago when we had the Wither tactic for Alliance War. I really enjoy using her. It's just a standard America Chavez fight. Just play Cassie as you would otherwise, and the only thing that this node has to deal with is protection every few seconds, but pretty much I'm just going to be trying to knock her down anyways, so it actually just plays into Cassie's overall playstyle. Not a very difficult fight overall, just some fun, to be honest. This next fight isn't going to go as I had planned. Part of that is due to the fact that I elected to go with a invulnerability boost. In retrospect, I should have gone for the Power Start 1 initially. That would have definitely helped me get to that special 3 a lot faster, which is what you need, especially given that as you're close to Zemo on this node, he's just going to gain debuffs, so all those cleanse charges are going to go off, and then he's going to root you, and if you don't have a special as well, you're pretty much just stuck there, and he's going to stack on those bleeds. That's what's going to do most of my damage, or deal most of the damage to me, as you see here. And then at this point, I am just trying to deal as much damage as I can before I die. It's also going to be difficult to actually keep the prowess charges under control at this point. I'm just trying to do what I can before inevitably he finishes me off. At this point, the bleeds are just going to finish me off, and I'm going to have to go back in because I'm not going to deal any damage. He has 5 indestructible charges on him, and they just keep going up and up and up. So this is the cleanup for that. On this attempt, I did actually use the Power Start 1. You're going to see this fight went a lot smoother that way. So really making sure that you are aware what boost you should go in initially will make a world of difference in how a fight goes. We're going to finish up this war with a Cassie versus Mojo on the Hazard Shift, Incinerate, and Poison mini. So again, she is actually poison immune, and then she's going to mitigate a lot of the damage that you would take otherwise from Incinerates here when you have her taunt up. So I'm not really worried too much about anything here. He is stun immune, but even with that, I can just miss his attacks and go right into it, so it's a pretty comfortable fight, nothing too crazy going on here. He'll go down without a hitch. Alright, now we're going to head on over to the war at LVT. I'm going to be on path 3 for both of the sections. This first fight is just a Corvus versus a Black Panther Civil War. In this fight, I used a Power Start 1. There's nothing too difficult on this fight other than you have to make sure that you time your special 2s. As you're going to see here, you have to parry before the indestructible charge goes back up, just to make sure that you don't actually attack him when those are up. Easy enough. Next, we're going to be fighting a future Ant-Man with Hulkling. If you saw my last video, you'll see that I did this same fight. It's a pretty common place where you're going to find future Ant-Man if he's in Alliance War on defense. Regular fight, you wait for his initial glance armor to go off, and then you hit into his block, get your penetration buff up, and you really don't have anything else you have to deal with for the rest of the fight. So this next fight was actually very fun. It is going to be a Man-Thing versus Super Skrull. So going into this fight, the instructions that I was given was just to actually parry 5 times so that instead of activating armors, he's just going to activate those fury buffs, at which point I can start kind of going into the fight, be more aggressive. I'm sticking to SP1s to put those postural buffs on him, and then use the heavy attack to actually apply an armor break and a poison on Super Skrull. Here, I'm just going to let MD feed me and then fire off an SP2. That's where most of the damage is going to come from. I did have Mystic Dispersion at 5, so it overfed me to Special 3, which is fine. I'm just going to fire that off. I use that on him and bait out another special from Super Skrull after this. The fight is very much under control though. The only thing you want to do is stick to heavy attacks to nullify his buffs, and ideally stick to just SP1s. I'm going to fire off another SP3 because Mystic Dispersion overfed me power, but again, at this point the fight's pretty much done. Those poisons after this special finishes are just going to finish him off for me. Next fight is just a simple Corvus versus Red Skull Nuke. The only thing to watch out for here is the glancing, but I'm just gonna parry to remove his armor buffs. I didn't even use a Power Start 1 on this fight because I didn't need it. I knew my Corvus already with a charge would pretty much just nuke him regardless. The only thing, I'm not hitting into his block because you'll take that damage, and I'm not even going to go for a punish here on that special attack just because he has that auto block buff on him. Simple enough. We're heading over to GGIR for this next fight, set of fights rather. This first one is a Black Widow Clairvoyant versus Odin. The goal here is just to build up my passive prowess charges while hitting into his block and simultaneously getting him up to a bar of power so that he'll throw his special 1, he'll activate the True Strike, I'll let that finish off and it'll actually feed my Mystic Dispersion, which I have at level 5, so it's going to give me a good chunk of power. I don't want to hit him very much, if at all, on this node in general, because he does start with that armor buff and I can't nullify it. So ideally what I'm trying to do is just use his SP once to do that, which takes about a minute and a half. But you're going to see here, I'm just going to make a mistake. I'm going to end up eating some hits here, and then I'm going to use SP2 to heal that back and also just nullify his armor. At this point, it's just a fairly straightforward fight, nothing too difficult, it's just a long fight. This next fight is a Hulkling versus Nimrod, also on path 3. Pretty simple fight, hidden to block. If you want to actually have power or use your specials, you just have to make sure that you don't hit him like that when he has an armor buff, which is pretty much going to be always. So if you're going to use a special, hit his block, go unblockable when you're hitting his block, and fire the SB2 with that unblockable. Now section 2, path 3, we're going to start off with a Corvus versus Vision. This is with no charges, but even so, he's just going to cut through her like butter. Just going to use a special 1 and finish her off really quickly. Next fight is a Hulkling versus Future Ant-Man, yet again. I am always fighting him, so I'm pretty much well versed with his kit overall by now at this point. Initially, this is where my war was going to end. I just had those 4 fights. However, we had a little mishap and I had to attempt to take a gore on node 42. The only option at that point was myself with Black Widow Clairvoyant, or nothing else. You're gonna see the attempt that I had to take gore down with Black Widow Clairvoyant, which wasn't at all what I was expecting. This fight in particular just feels a bit too archaic in general. She might be able to do it. It's just very difficult to time things because you're trying to make sure that you don't have all these debuffs on you as well, so you're trying not to block, but also by the time you do reach a special, he is building up his own specials and you're trying to bait those while keeping the indestructible charges under control. Overall, I would not recommend this fight. I end up not soloing this. I had to actually take a few more attempts on him to get him down just in general. In retrospect, what may have also been detrimental to me though was the fact that I was using suicides on here. So if I were ever to attempt this fight again, which I definitely would not recommend doing, probably don't use suicide masteries and stick to her bleed phase at least, so that you can regenerate a lot of the damage that you're taking. So thank you guys for watching. If any of these showcases were helpful to you guys, share it with your alliance mates, share it with your friends, and I hope you guys have an amazing day. I will catch you next time. Later.